Welcome back to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but first let's hear from our podcast sponsors. We want to thank Final Forms for their support of the Educational AD Podcast. Final Forms is the industry leader in registration, but you have to know this: Final Forms is more than just registration. Final Forms is a team, it's technology, and it's a service that serves schools with compliance, communication, and risk management solutions. Final Forms can help your stakeholders with things like mobile accessibility, has reminders for parents about policies, about physicals, and all the forms that go with athletics, can help with team communication and attendance, and even certification management for coaches. And for athletic directors, it can help with eligibility, with rosters, and all the reports that come across your desk. And it does this with secure language translation and ADA compliance. It's time for you to talk with a team that's walked in your shoes to take the next step and find out what Final Forms can do for you and your program. Go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake to get started and become a member of the Final Forms team. We also want to thank Violet Defense for their support. Violet Defense is dedicated to protecting our world from germs by bringing the power of UV disinfection to everyday spaces. Their patented technology enables them to harness the power of the sun to incorporate ultraviolet light into products and environments like never before. Whether you're ready to implement existing products, or if you'd like to explore researching and developing a custom deployment of their technology for your school, Violet Defense has the solutions and the experience you need. Go to violetdefense.com for more information about their great products. We also want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive. You know, it's becoming harder and harder to fund an athletic department, but Sideline Interactive's indoor scoring tables and video boards can generate $10,000 or more every year while creating excitement in the gym and the ultimate game day experience for your athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or call 832-786-0302 to schedule a live web demo and see their tables and boards in action. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com for more information. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com and see exactly what their fantastic products can do for you and your school. We also want to say thanks to Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. You know, they are on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They've got a variety of interactive touchscreen video consoles and an extensive library of templates to make it easier than ever to recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. For ideas on how to showcase your school's diverse history and your proudest moments, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Or to learn more and get started with your digital Wall of Fame tribute, call them at 614-981-3589, or you can email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. That's sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Over 200,000 teams, including some of the best in the world, use Huddle to elevate their performance of their teams using video and analytics. Huddle is the complete performance platform. They have online tools, mobile and desktop apps, smart cameras like the Huddle Focus. There's always been analytics, but there's a whole lot more. Huddle's also built for every level of play, from college and youth teams all the way through high school and college programs. And even the pros are using Huddle to help their athletes play at the highest level. You're in pretty good company with over 6 million users, including your student athletes, a lot of their parents, and the coaches of the college and university teams that you're trying to get to recruit your kids. If you want to find out more about what Huddle can do for you and your program and how your school can become a Huddle school, go to huddle.com and talk to their professionals. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. We also want to say thank you to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. You can find out more about what Hometown Ticketing can do for you and your program by going to hometownticketing.com. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. And we also want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack for their sponsorship of the Athletic Director's Toolbox segment of the podcast. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve every aspect of your athletic department. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack also connects you with the 95% of the parents and the student athletes that really love your program, and gives them a voice to help demonstrate the importance that a positive athletic experience has for them. Go to athleticsurveys.com and check out their testimonials, and then give them a call at 1-800-738-6466, or you can email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the folks at Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack and let them show you how to take your athletic program from good to great. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going back to my home state of Oregon, and a true Oregon legend. I was telling her before we started, I'm a little bit older than our guest, but I still remember very vividly reading about her exploits as a high school and as a college athlete. And now she's giving back to the profession as a longtime award-winning athletic director. Our guest today is Maria Lopez, and she's the athletic director at St. Mary's Academy in Portland, Oregon. Maria, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jake. Happy to be here with you today.
Well, again, it's always great to talk to somebody, from Oregon. Was born and raised there, went to school, and spent, the first 12, 15 years of my career there before bouncing around the country. But let's hear about you. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that 5-minute bio. I already mentioned that, you kind of grew up and went to school in Oregon, but, talk a little bit about those days, high school and college, and kind of the path that led you back to St. Mary's Academy.
Well, I always felt fortunate. My parents, I'm one of 8 kids. I have an older brother that's just ahead of me. So growing up, we were pretty inseparable. I think that's where my love for movement and just kind of the natural competition that you have when you have an older brother began. And then I was very fortunate to be, 12 years old when Title IX passed. I knew nothing about it at the time, but soon to come to realize that, wow, I had opportunities, a lot of opportunities that other women just a few years older than me didn't have, and was really able to capitalize on that. I was able to play CYO sports, the Catholic Youth Organization, in grade school, and then went to St. Mary's Academy in Portland, and it's the only single gender school in the state, so we didn't have that competition, if you will, with the boys. The nuns just loved championing the sports for girls because it was new, and a lot of them, I think, were, they were athletes at heart. A lot of them had wanted to participate. So it was a great breeding ground and a great place to be a female student athlete, because, we didn't feel like we got hand-me-downs or the gym times, or, had to play the crazy game times. So it was all about us, and just kind of thought that was the natural thing. And had a successful career at St. Mary's, participating in volleyball and basketball and track. Played a little softball with a women's fast pitch team for a couple of years, but then high school sports were really starting to come into their own. I think I actually participated my freshman year in the first OSAA state championship in volleyball for girls.
Oh, wow.
And then my sophomore year was actually the first year that the OSAA sponsored the state championship in basketball for girls. So I didn't realize it was, that big of a deal then, but it was. And there were tournaments before, but they weren't sponsored by the OSAA. So it really came in kind of at the forefront. Track had been around and had the opportunity to do that, but really fortunate again to have some great teammates and coaches that helped me get exposure for college. Because back then, club sports really wasn't a thing. Maybe there were a small handful of volleyball teams in the area, but that wasn't really the route that most student athletes would go to, get exposure to playing college. And so my senior year had a number of different offers, even a couple for golf. They told me after the fact, like, yeah, there were a couple schools that wanted you to play golf, but we thought, yeah, no, she's probably not interested in golf. And I kind of chuckle at that now, but ended up selecting University of Southern California, partly because they wanted me to play both sports, volleyball and basketball. And at the time I was really interested in doing that, and was able to pursue both sports my first 2 years down there. But then between school and just the intensity of the programs, was really not just physically able to continue doing both. So stuck with volleyball. And my junior year, we won the club. We did play in a club league in the off season. We won the USA Volleyball national championship, which was here in Portland, which was great. And then the following fall, my junior year, 1980, we won it was at that time the governing body for women's athletics, collegiate women's athletics, was the Association for Intercollegiate Athletics for Women, the AIAW. And we won that national championship. And then the following year, we actually was the first NC2A national championship for women in volleyball. I think it might have even been one of the first championships they ever offered. And probably the highlight was beating UCLA at Poly Pavilion in 5 to do that when they had beaten us, I think, 3 times that season. So we've been dealing with some injuries and different things, and kind of a put together team. We'd lost a few players after we won the 80 championship, and so my coach was he was a very determined, very knowledgeable, resourceful coach, and brought in some good players to help, make up for the ones that left. Anyway, led to, just putting together a great group, and beating UCLA on their floor was really a highlight. So that was great. And during the summer summer in between my junior and senior years, had the opportunity to play in the World University Games, representing the US, which was also quite an adventure, playing in Bucharest, Romania. It's like an off-year kind of Olympic type event where they have teams from all these different countries coming and staying in a village, if you will, and then competing in, I don't know how many different sports. But that was a great experience, just exposure to realize how fortunate we are, to have all the amenities, and to compete. You don't even think twice about, oh, I can eat the food that's going to help me play well. I can sleep in a bed that, not that they didn't have beds and food, but it was so different from what we were used to. So just all those different components that go into competing. And then probably 5 years after I graduated from college, I had the opportunity to play professional volleyball. There was an indoor league for women here in the United States, Major League Volleyball. That was in existence for about 2.5 years. So I played in Phoenix, and then they moved the franchise here to Portland. So that was fun too, to get to play. And something that I never dreamed about, and gave me a really different perspective on, sports in the school setting, whether it's high school, grade school, high school, college, versus professional, where it's really about entertainment, and the demands, the expectations that, you're a performer. Athletics in the true sense being the high school and the college level, and helping kids grow. That's, where I did a few short stints coaching college, but have really enjoyed working with high school students, and, seeing the growth in them, and just that transformation, not just in athletics, but across the board. And yeah, being a part of that community here in Portland at St. Mary's in Oregon, it's just a great place to be. So have always felt really fortunate to do what I love in a place that I really enjoy with friends, colleagues that share the same passion.
Boy, again, I knew a little bit of your high school and college athletic successes, but great hearing that story about beating your rival UCLA for the national championship. I can just imagine that atmosphere. The gym must have been rocking. And again, being there at the very beginning, really, of Title IX, and collegiately and even professionally, as those leagues were starting to come in. I just love the history and appreciate you sharing with us. For our listeners, we are visiting today with Maria Lopez. She's the athletic director at St. Mary's Academy in Portland, Oregon. We're going to hear more about that part of her career, but let's take a quick break. This is the Educational AD Podcast. Please stay with us. We want to say thank you to Final Forms for their support of the Educational AD Podcast. Final Forms is the industry leader in athletic forms and registration, but you have to know this. Final Forms is more than just registration. Final Forms is a team, it's technology, and it's a service that serves schools in things like compliance, communication, and even provides risk management solutions. Final Forms can help your stakeholders with things like mobile accessibility, has reminders for parents about policies, about physicals, and all the forms that go with athletics. It can help with team communication, can help with certification management for coaches and for ADs. Final Forms can help with eligibility, with rosters, and all the reports that come across your desk. And it does this using secure language and ADA compliance. It's time for you to talk with a team that's walked in your shoes. To take the next steps and find out what Final Forms can do for you and your school, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake and get started on being a member of the Final Forms team.
Oh, I see.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. Again, we're visiting today with Maria Lopez. She's the athletic director at St. Mary's Academy in Portland. Coach, talk a little bit about when you first came back to St. Mary's. You had played there, had tremendous success there, but now you're sitting on the other side of the desk as the AD. How was that, and what were some of the steps that maybe you continue to do? Because I know your program continues to have tremendous success.
It's definitely a switch. I followed a good friend of mine, Cindy Simmons, who was at St. Mary's for 3 years, and she paved a great path. I called her every day. She just moved to a neighboring school. She went to Aloha High School when she left St. Mary's. So we were actually still in the league. And then the other athletic directors in the league were great at, first I think they were kind of trying to figure me out, like, who is this person? She doesn't look like the rest of us, but I think Cindy had done a good job, like I said, paving that way. And so they all really pitched in and helped me figure things out. One guy took me under his wing and started me on the non-league scheduling, which is a statewide program where we build schedules, outside the league schedules with other schools in the state, which is, I'm still on that committee. I'm thinking it's probably like 27, 28, 29 years that I've been doing that, which I'm one of the old timers, but it's really, it was a great way for me to meet other athletic directors. And then, being at St. Mary's obviously was a little weird at first because I'm working with people that were my teachers, but I think that's just the community that the school is. And, helping actually one of my younger sisters was one of my students when I first started teaching there. So, being able to relate to either younger sisters or cousins, or now, the daughters of my my
Right.
classmates, and even students who are their daughters. So just it keeps perpetuating itself. That's when you kind of figure, okay, yeah, I've been here for a while. But it is a great community. And when I first came back, we were in the Metro League. We've transitioned now through the Mountain Hood Conference. We're actually in the Three Rivers League, and always competitive. I think that's the thing that struck me, that no matter where the school landed in terms of competitiveness, we've been in arguably one of the toughest leagues in the state. And I think we try and step up to that challenge, and that's just the nature of our students. I think they want to do well. It has gotten a lot more competitive with club sports have really changed the atmosphere of high school competition, because so many students play well beyond the high school season. And there's respectively, there's the haves and the have-nots, the students whose families have the resources for them to play outside the season, and then the students whose parents don't, or the multiple sport athletes, students that are very strong athletes but don't just stay in one sport. But boy, you can sure see it. And I kind of envy those kids, because I think they're probably going to have more longevity in their career, because they're not going to have those overuse injuries. They're not going to get burnout because they're just playing the same thing. So my advice is always, just have fun. Whatever you're doing, have fun. Don't let it become a job. And I think that's the nice thing about high school athletics. We have, I think collectively, the athletic directors have tried to keep it in that vein, and trying to remind parents this isn't necessarily, the high school athletics are not necessarily built to bring your student that college scholarship. It's about the educational components that we learn through being involved in sport. And college scholarship may be that byproduct that some students are going after, but realistically, and St. Mary's for sure, the number of students that go on to participate in college, because sometimes the schools that they want to attend either aren't at the level they are athletically, or the schools that want them don't necessarily have the academic path that they would choose. So, there's, I think, that reality, and maybe that's just this situation for young women. I think they maybe think, I see myself in this kind of a career path, and there's not a professional opportunity for most of them. So they see their playing days are probably more limited than maybe young men. But it's been a great place to work over the years. Lots of great coaches, and the school really believes in athletics. It's obviously being in tough leagues, they know that we really have to step up and provide opportunities, whether it's coaches, working on facilities, equipment, whatever is needed to try and give our kids that experience to get them to that level to compete.
Yeah, I was going to go off script here for a second. As someone who competed very successfully in multiple sports in high school, and as you mentioned, even multiple sports at the Division I level, what's your advice to that elite athlete at your school regarding, playing high school sports as opposed to just having the blinders on and playing that their favorite sport year round? Do they come to you? Do they seek your advice, your wise counsel?
Some people tell me now they don't even know what you've done, and it's okay. I don't need I don't need to tell them. I'm still, I like to think I could probably still take them on. A few of them I could still take on, but no, seriously, I think the toughest thing for them, I would say, try and enjoy what you're doing, and don't always look at the success or failure as, especially failure, to be that deterrent, because that's, life is about that, building resiliency. There's so many parallels between what you'll encounter in athletics and in life, and sometimes just staying so narrow focused on one, gosh, you might lose the opportunity in something else. So play as many as you can, as long as you can. I know that's tough. Even a good friend of mine who's an athletic director at another school, he had I think an 8-year-old son, and he had a baseball coach telling him at a little league tryout that he couldn't leave 10 minutes early because he wasn't going to make a team. And he said, well, now wait a minute, you're telling me if I take my son, the whole thing was just it's believable because I seen it,
Right.
heard these stories, but what the pressure we're putting on kids now is, yeah, I'm glad I'm glad I was one of 8 because I didn't get that kind of attention. I never felt like my parents were sitting over me like, we're spending all this money on you so you can get a college scholarship. Not at all. I was like, uh, they wanted me to go to college, but there was no expectation in terms of, an athletic scholarship or even competing. And yeah, the club piece, yeah, I probably would have been more polished. I think that is one benefit that our students have. They're definitely more polished. Watching them play, boy, it's the level is so different, but athlete for athlete, I don't think there's that much difference in, the physical, what they bring and what their potential is. And so I hope that they're not burning themselves out, not working so hard to get to that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. They get there and then, yeah, they might play for 1 or 2 seasons in college. And that's it. They don't want to play anymore. And that, to me, that's really sad. You see the potential that they had. You just wish that you could give them that, that looking glass to see, okay, just, be patient, kind of stay the course, avoid those distractions, if you will, the negative social media, all the things that can just really tear a kid down. They don't need that. They just need the positive reinforcements and, the experience to be a good one, to really benefit from it.
No, absolutely. I mean, you hit it, I think, at the very beginning where you talked about, hey, sports should be fun. Let's try to make this a fun experience. For our listeners, we're visiting with Maria Lopez. She's the athletic director at St. Mary's Academy in Portland, Oregon, highly decorated athlete and athletic director. We're going to be back with some more. Please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thank you to Huddle for their support of the podcast. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Over 200,000 teams, including some of the best in the world, use Huddle to elevate the play of their athletes using video and analytics. Huddle's the complete performance platform. They have online tools, mobile and desktop apps, smart cameras like the Huddle Focus. There's always been analytics, but there's a whole lot more. Huddle's built for every level of play, from club and youth teams all the way through high school and college programs. And even the pros use Huddle to help their teams play their best. You're in pretty good company with over 6 million users, including your student athletes, a lot of their parents, and the coaches of the college teams you're trying to get to recruit your kids. If you want to find out more about what Huddle can do for you and your program and how your school can become a Huddle school, go to huddle.com and talk to their professionals. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Welcome back again, everyone. We're visiting with Maria Lopez, the athletic director at Portland's St. Mary's Academy. Maria, we always like to talk about the mentors that people have had. Leadership and mentorship is so important in our profession, and none of us get here on our own. So who are some of the mentors that you've had that helped you along the way?
I think the obvious ones, I'd start with my parents. Being one of 8, my mom, my dad, they were kind of like the coaches of our team, if you will, giving enough attention, but not too much, letting you kind of build some of that resourcefulness yourself. I like to think of myself as fairly resourceful. And I think that's because they didn't do everything for us. We had to kind of figure out how to do things, but also my older brother, for sure, some of my siblings, and then in school, gosh, my teachers, my high school coaches, for sure, Kathy Kenyon, Rick Lorenz, they were really instrumental when it came to kind of the forefront, the beginning of women getting, girls getting recruited by colleges. They really fielded a lot of that for me and kind of helped me, I don't want to say they influenced me towards any one school, but helped me focus in on, what did I want to do, what was my path going to be like. And obviously going into education, I think that kind of gives you a little hint that, seeing their example, and some of the teachers that I had at St. Mary's for sure were the ones that influenced me to go into education. And then in college, the coaches that I played for sure, but also, and I think more about this as I get older, the women's athletic director at USC, when, in Title IX passed, they didn't have a women's athletic director prior to that. They tapped a woman who was teaching physical education in their at school there, and it was Barbara Hedges, who, she ended up being the athletic director at University of Washington, very successful, but she was the first women's athletic director at USC, and Mrs. Hedges was a very shrewd businesswoman. So it's kind of funny because, my profession actually is, I'm a physical education teacher, and I don't always think of a lot of my colleagues in that realm as being shrewd business people, but boy, she was spot on. She really, from the beginning, we had travel outfits, which, and you look at the guys getting off the bus when they show up at a football game and they're all in ties or some kind of, matching outfit that they just look sharp. They look neat. You treat somebody like a champion and they're going to perform like a champion. And, she had that mindset. We didn't realize that. We would kind of joke about, some of the things that she would try, but in retrospect, I think, gosh, she really was planting that seed for us. And then in every way, we had, we were treated very, very well, which, what they had for the men, she really tried to make sure that the women had equal billing, which, as you know, is still, you think of the NC2A, sorry, I'll bring this up in the basketball situation last year. I never felt at USC that we were second fiddle to any of the men's programs. And I really feel like a lot of it was her influence and her, her work behind the scenes to make us have that. And so I think about that in my job now and how I try and focus, channel my inner Barbara. She was a great advocate, but in a very, not a rah cheering, but, just in her own way, and have a lot of respect for that. And then as an athletic director, gosh, the colleagues that I've worked with, even the sisters, the nuns at St. Mary's, that just always wanted you always felt like you wanted to work your hardest, because that was the example they were putting out. They didn't look at the clock. They were there until the job got done, supporting the kids, sometimes being that tough mentor that had to tell a kid something they didn't necessarily want to hear. Because, there's one thing about being a supportive adult in someone's life, and there's one thing about kind of enabling them, trying to be their friend, and maybe you want to connect, but they also need to have a student needs to have, or, a young person needs to have somebody that's able to tell them, hey, there's a better way, there's a different way, and maybe a different choice that you could be making that might be more successful or more advantageous for you. And I think they had a good way of doing that. So learning from them in that, but also just that work ethic, what you bring, and then the athletic director colleagues that I've worked with over the years that, I'm amazed that some of them, like sending a fax. We used to joke, one guy would send, you better load your fax machine up because he's going to be sending like a 100-page fax at like 4 a.m. And I'm thinking, God, when do these guys sleep? Because they just, they're always out or running events. So yeah, we learn a lot from them and try and follow their example. And, we kind of have a saying, you never have to reinvent the wheel. So people are pretty good about sharing, whether it's scheduling or hiring or taxed with interactions with parents, different strategies, communication. So lots of great mentors over the year. I know I mentioned Cindy Simmons was a really good one. And I think, now there will be 3 women on the executive board of our State Association for Athletic Directors this year. She was the first female president. So really setting that, and the guys too, because, I know it's been a little bit of a transition for some, but they have been so diligent at trying to be more diverse and inclusive, and make it a welcoming environment, because of course women tick a little bit differently. We're going to be a little more like discerning. We don't want to be vulnerable. So trying to make that a welcoming environment so that they can benefit from that, different point of view. So I really, I appreciate, Dave Hood, he's the executive director of the Oregon Athletic Directors now, Tim Sam, Doug Thompson, Dennis Burke. These guys are just, they're great to work with. So I really appreciate their mentorship. They probably would laugh because I think some of them, I've been an athletic director longer than them, but just the shared experiences, you can never get enough. So yeah, that's a great part of what I do, and I appreciate working with people like that.
I was going to ask, what were some of the changes you've seen, in the state, with OADA and that sort of thing, but you kind of alluded to that. I love the term you use talking about parents being the supportive adult as opposed to trying to be a friend, or for a coach too. Supportive adult, what a concept. I think we probably need to follow that a little bit more. For our list. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's tough right now in COVID. Coming out of COVID, students didn't have a typical the past 2 years. So seeing that example of the older kids, that are really critical time in their development, and not being able to see kids a year, 2 years ahead of them because they were isolated from that. And so now coming back and expecting them to be those leaders, that's been a little bit, and we can't expect them to have all those answers. So being patient, but being intentional about making sure that we're not just expecting too much or not expecting enough. Helping them. Okay, you gotta pick it up here. This is the chance. Everybody's in the same boat. So it's a balance.
Communicate, educate, and support. That's what we do. Okay. For our listeners, once again, we're visiting today with Maria Lopez. She's the athletic director at Portland, Oregon, St. Mary's Academy. Going to be back with some more, but let's take another break and say thanks to our sponsors. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thank you to Sideline Interactive for their support. It's becoming harder and harder to fund an athletic department, but Sideline Interactive's indoor scoring tables and video boards can generate $10,000 or more every year, while also creating excitement in the gym and the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or call 832-786-0302 to schedule a live web demo and see their tables and boards in action. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com for more information. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com and see exactly what their fantastic products can do for you. Hey, welcome back, everyone. It's the Educational AD Podcast. We're visiting today with Maria Lopez, the athletic director at St. Mary's Academy in Portland, Oregon. Coach, now's the time where we like to try and share some best practices with our listeners. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. What are some things that you do at St. Mary's Academy? And maybe these are things that you actually initiated, but when you step back and take a look at them, you say, boy, we really do a great job. Do you have any best practices you can share with our AD listeners?
I think probably just building that sense of community would be kind of at the top of the list. And we have a lot of coaches that are either alums, past parents, but the trickle down, I think, is what I'm most impressed with our kids. We'll have 3 levels of teams in like basketball and volleyball and soccer, and our seniors will come to us now and say, you know what, we want to make sure that the younger teams are just as much involved and they get just as much as attention, and that we mix with them as much as we do with the teammates that we're with collectively. Where it used to be back probably 15, 20 years ago, where the varsity wanted to be, this is only the varsity, we're this elite group, and we don't really intermix. But now they tend to want to look out for the the younger players, the more novice players, and kind of taking them under their wing, if you will. And I'm not sure exactly where all of that, I think it was probably a number of different influences, but to me, that, seeing the bigger picture, seeing beyond themselves, it's a process. Education is a process, but I think learning that in life is one of those skills that will really help these young people as they move forward to look beyond just what their needs are, and see that for the greater good, where everyone else is coming from. I'd say that's probably at the top of the list, and to see how much they care for each other. I always joke, of course, at St. Mary's, it's all girls. They're all like little mothers to each other. They want to make sure that, well, my friend, she doesn't have this, and I'm worried about her because, she didn't get enough to eat or whatever. They're just always looking out for each other. So really impressed with that. And I think, we're building our neighbors for the future. We're building people that are going to be voting for things that we're all going to be living with. So helping them see the bigger picture, even in these small steps, I think is a really important component, well beyond athletics. But I think that's the thing that I appreciate the most about what we've been able to bring about at St. Mary's. And I'm not just going to say it's athletics. I think it's collective, but athletics does have a special opportunity to do that because, there's just so much more at stake. When you're out there, you're vulnerable and you're with your teammates, they know what it's like, that shared experience that they have to support each other or not. So seeing when they do, how much more successful they can be is a really powerful tool, for them to hang on to that and hopefully continue to give that same kind of energy. I think, the other piece I can't really, again, say that it's all me, but just the academic focus that our students can maintain. Academically, they're just incredible how they can balance all of that and learn how to, stay focused, do well in the classroom, and bring what they can to the athletic arena, making choices. I think that's another really important skill that we provide opportunity for them to learn. They can't do it all. It's kind of, I tell them, it's like there's only so much money in the bank. You can only write checks for so much. That's your energy. And, sometimes you have to choose, prioritizing, making decisions kind of on a smaller level that hopefully learning a process they can apply later on in life. I know that's one of the things one of the skills I felt like I learned at St. Mary's, because, just when you're young, you want to do everything. You're infallible. You can do a bazillion different things. Well, that's not true. So, finding that focus, and then obviously our programs, I think, athletically, we have been very competitive. It's, sometimes it's championships are, it's about being in the right place at the right time with the right students, coaches, opportunity, but recognizing that, what's within your control, what's outside of your control, so that, luck is when preparation meets opportunity, right? So that they're ready to jump on that and they can capitalize. But even coming up short, hey, you know what? How many teams actually played in that championship game, and that realization. So putting trophies in the trophy case it's really fun. I'm not going to lie, hanging banners, but learning something as you're coming through it, I think, is probably the piece that I think our coaches try and do a good job at helping students see that, not taking each other for granted, kind of the bigger pictures in life. I guess those would be the pieces that I'm really proud of in our program over the years, and kids wanting to come back and coach with us, that speaks volumes. So yeah.
And all those things you talked about, I think we summed that up in a word that we use a lot, but it's so elusive: culture, the culture of a school. You certainly have that. And you mentioned it at the front end and there at the very end, that many of your coaches are former players. They want to come back. They want to stay a part of that culture. Very, very cool. We're going to do this at the end, but If one of our listeners wanted to reach out and pick your brain a little bit, find out more about how you do things there at St. Mary's Academy, what's the best way that they can get in touch with you? Email?
Yeah, email. Pretty easy. We're all first name dot last name at smapdx.org. It's ANNAMARIA dot LOPEZ at smapdx.org.
Okay, very good. We'll do that again at the end of the
Okay.
podcast. Anna Maria Lopez, Athletic Director at St. Mary's Academy. We'll be back with some more. Please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thank you to Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. You know, they have a mission, and it's to bring your school's legacy to life. They've got a variety of interactive touchscreen video consoles and an extensive library of templates to make it easier than ever to recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. For ideas on how to showcase your school's diverse history and your proudest moments, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com or learn more and get started with your digital Wall of Fame tribute. Give them a call at 614-981-3589, or you can email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. That's sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is Anna Maria Lopez. She's the Athletic Director at St. Mary's Academy in Portland, Oregon. Anna Maria, one of the questions we've been asking our ADs has to do with this theme of toughness. The way I like to set it up is 100 years ago when I was in high school, it was very common for coaches to say, come on, Jake, you got to be tough, or come on, Jake, you got to suck it up. And, back then we knew what they meant and we did it. Over the course of the last, let's say 50 plus years, I think we've learned better ways to communicate to our students, to communicate those ideas to our athletes. So my question is, how can an AD or a coach or any leader do a better job of helping kids to become tough in sports and tough in life? Do you have any advice for us?
Yeah, I think athletics is a great segue. It's a great learning environment for students to develop resiliency. I know you call it tough, but I call it just, resiliency, because life is going to be full of challenge, speed bumps, hurdles, the cliff that you're going to have to figure out, do I jump over or do I just, figure out another way to get around it? And being as supportive as you can. They used to talk about the sandwich method: one positive, one criticism, then another positive to kind of melt. Now the theory is you give 5 positives before you give any type of criticism. And especially for young women, I think they don't like to be vulnerable. They want you to tell them exactly how to do it the first time, explain it so well that they can be successful the first time. They don't want to make a mistake. So, letting them know, one, it's okay to make a mistake. If you're not pushing yourself to make a mistake, you can work harder. You're going to improve better. Poor grammar. You're going to improve faster. You're going to have a better learning experience if you push yourself to go beyond what your boundaries are, your comfort level. And I think getting them used to that type of piece where they're looking for to make a mistake, force yourself to make a mistake. That's how we learn, I think is a good start. And then, just like any skill, making it progressively more challenging. You don't start out asking somebody to, leap over, a 10-foot chasm. You want to give them incremental challenges to increase that. And I think the same is true with anything that brings on anxiety, fear, that vulnerability that you're not going to be successful. If you can give it in small increments and let them see, hey, you can do this, and just be as supportive as possible, recognizing that they're going to have their moments where they stand at that precipice and I'm not quite sure I can make it. Okay, well, let's step back. Let's get to this point, and then progressively, yes, you can be successful. And when they see that success, just the self-confidence that brings them, really trying to reinforce that. But I had a coach a couple summers ago that was just working with some kids. I was walking through the gym, and she had some younger students. I think they were like elementary school, grade school age, that they were doing some ball handling in basketball. And, she was having them dribble both hands, figure eight, between the legs and around to the side. And she said, okay, if you're not going so fast if you're in such good control doing this and you're going like this pace, you're not challenging yourself enough. You need to be pushing yourself so you're losing that ball. That kind of a mindset that, okay, you know what, welcome that challenge. And then obviously being dialed in with, some days they're going to be kids will be in the mindset they can handle that. Other days, not so much, connecting enough that you can read that. What do they need in that moment to be successful, or pull back and feel okay about pulling back? I mean, there's nothing wrong in that, recognizing where you are. But it's tough, connecting with kids. It's such a diverse population where they're coming from, what they need. So really credit the coaches for doing that. But being intentional and trying to encourage girls, especially, hey, you know what? That vulnerability, we're all there. I'm vulnerable. We're all vulnerable. We have to figure out how to get over that in life, because that's, you think about it, that's how we get anywhere. And someday, as a parent yourself, when you have your own kids, you're going to be that mentor, that person for them. So having as much background now to share later on, not that you need to learn it all at one time, but progressively moving forward. That's everybody's path. We all come through that, and most of us survive.
Now, you touched on such a very important component, at least in my opinion, of meeting those challenges and challenging yourself, and again, coaches creating challenges. So many, I know it's not most, but too many parents, they seem to want to try and bulldoze all of the challenges and all of the obstacles out of the way of their children, and they don't understand that that's, as you just said, that's how they get better, by meeting those challenges. This has been so cool getting a chance to visit with you. Again, I knew you, in high school and college, through newspapers, and you didn't know who I was, and that's okay. But this has just been really cool for me. But we're not done yet. We always like to wrap up with what we call the Athletic Director's Toolbox. We've already established that you are a seasoned veteran and certainly know your way around the world of athletics. But in just a moment, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on the very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. And we're going to take a quick break and hear from Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack that sponsor the Athletic Director's Toolbox segment. And when we come back, we're going to find out what Maria Lopez is going to put in her athletic director toolbox. Please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. Like I said, we want to say thank you to Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack for sponsoring the Athletic Director Toolbox segment. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve every aspect of your athletic department. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack also connects you with the 95% of the parents and the players who really love your program. And it gives them a voice to help demonstrate the importance that a positive athletic experience has for them. Go to athleticsurveys.com and check out their testimonials, and then give them a call at 1-800-738-6466, or you can email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the folks at Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack and let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Once again, welcome back to the Educational AD Podcast. It's time for the Athletic Director's Toolbox. We've been visiting with Maria Lopez of Portland, Oregon, St. Mary's Academy. And now it's time to find out what tools she's going to give to a brand new AD. Coach, what 3 items are going to go into Maria Lopez's Athletic Director Toolbox?
Yeah, only 3. That's tough. I'd say communication, is really the undertone. Excuse me. And one, knowing your audience. Making sure that your students, your families, your coaches, everybody is on the same page. And bottom line, they know that you care about them. You're there for them. You're committed. You show up at as many events as you can, just to be that supportive person. To let them know that you're there, and you see what they see. That I think you can't do this job without that type of connection to people. The second one is, and these are probably more things that I've done, but connecting with colleagues. There's so many details in what we do, and I think there's always a better way to do it. So whether it's, accessing resources, our state association, the Oregon Athletic Directors Association, actually has an AD toolbox that has lots of different forms and scripts and things that, you would need, whether it's scheduling or planning events or evaluating end of season, all kinds of things that you can go into. So, connecting with your state association, connecting with colleagues to learn, and then shared experiences, like, hey, how did you deal in this situation with this parent, or in scheduling, or maybe this school? Those are, I know I was on the phone with the woman that I followed at St. Mary's. I was on the phone with her every day. I think that first year it was crazy. She was always there to talk to me, but colleagues are a great resource. People with some experience. And then the last thing for me was really important to make sure that the administrators in my school knew what was going on. And I think this is more and more common that, when I became an athletic director, it seemed like a lot of the principals, superintendents were respectively former athletes, maybe former coaches. And so they knew what, they anticipated what we were going to need in athletics. They recognized some of the challenges we had, and you didn't really have to ask for the support that they knew you needed. And that's not the case. Not to speak poorly of new administrators, but they're coming from the classroom. There's a lot of people that don't have that experience. So making sure that you're communicating with them. And I know I've been fortunate. I've had several administrators that made it a priority to meet with me at least on a weekly basis. If not, some, they made the mistake of telling me anytime my door's open, you can come in, and I'm like, okay, we've seen you enough. But, keeping it to at least once a week, so that, hey, what's coming up? Where do I need your support? What's going on? I think it really helps, because I know at our school, half of our students are involved in athletics at some point during the school year. Yeah, a lot of kids. And it definitely takes a team approach. We can't work independently. And I know that I always say that the ball that they're holding is much bigger than the ball that I'm holding in athletics, but truly need their support and to communicate what's going on. So, we're not working against each other and making it tough on the kids and the families. So yeah, I think it's probably more about connecting, communicating, more than any one single tool. So however that happens best for you and your school, whether it's phone, Zoom, in-person meeting, websites now are very important. I know our school likes to use social media. I'm not a big social media person, I hate to say, but other people in our school are. So, that helps to just make sure the kids know we're proud of them, and we're there to support them. And we're all working together collectively to help them. So those are probably my 3 pieces of advice, or the 3 areas that I would focus on if I were talking to a new athletic director and trying to clue them in on pieces they hopefully already know, but might be helpful to them.
Well, you squeezed in a couple more than three, but they were all great. And I love the point that you made about, keeping your principal informed. You're right that their ball is bigger than our ball because they have the whole school. But outside of academics, which every kid is involved in, no other program has as many students involved as athletics. So absolutely, we need to keep our principals informed. Great, great advice. One more time, if one of our listeners wants to reach out, pick your brain a little bit, find out more about how you do things there at St. Mary's Academy, what's the best way that they can get in touch with you?
Probably email. My email at St. Mary's is first name dot last name, ANNAMARIA.LOPEZ at smapdx.org. And that's St. Mary's Academy, Portland, and then .org. So yeah, it used to be longer and way more convoluted. So I'm happy they landed with first name dot last name. And anyway.
Yeah, the PDX saves a lot of time instead of having to type out Portland. Believe me, I know that. Anna Maria Lopez, St. Mary's Academy. Thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today, and all the best as you wrap up the spring sports season.
Thanks, Jake, and good luck to you. Enjoy being on your show and listening to your stories as well. You've lived quite an interesting life and had lots of different experiences. Coaching certainly broadens our horizons, giving different perspective on different people, whether they're the athletes or the coaches that you work with. And yeah, thanks for putting this together. Hopefully some of the things I've said can give other people some clues on how to do things maybe a little differently than what they're doing. And if not, maybe what to avoid.
Oh, no. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to share with us. And I guarantee you're going to be getting some emails from our listeners. They only seek out the very best. Okay.
All right.
For our listeners, remember the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews get uploaded to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel, so you can watch as well as listen. We appreciate you tuning in today. Come back just about every single day for new content on the Educational AD Podcast. Have a great day. And before we go, we want to thank Hometown Ticketing for their support. Hometown Ticketing is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. You can find out more about what Hometown Ticketing can do for you and your program by going to hometownticketing.com and talk to their experts. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing.